Imagine spending 27 years in prison, not for any crime, but for fighting against oppression, for daring to believe in equality. For most of us, that level of sacrifice is unimaginable. Yet, this was the life of Nelson Mandela, a man who became the global symbol of resilience, forgiveness, and freedom. Born into a world that segregated and oppressed his people, Mandela rose to become one of the greatest leaders of all time. He was a revolutionary, a prisoner, a president, and above all, a unifying force who changed the course of history. Today, we dive deep into the extraordinary life of Nelson Mandela. From his humble beginnings to his monumental fight against apartheid, from his time in prison to his emergence as South Africa's first black president. This is a story of courage, perseverance, and hope. By the end, you will not only understand Mandela's impact, but also see how his legacy continues to inspire the world. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in the tiny village of Mvizo, in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. His father, Gadla Henry Mfakeni-Iswa, was a local chief and counselor to the Thembu royal family. Mandela's mother, Nosekeni Fanny, instilled in him the values of humility and respect, qualities that would guide him throughout his life. Mandela's birth name, Ralilola, translates to pulling the branch of a tree, or more figuratively, troublemaker. When he was 9 years old, Mandela's father passed away, and he was sent to live with Chief Janjantaba Dalandibo, the acting regent of the Thembu people. This move was life-changing. It introduced Mandela to the intricacies of leadership and governance, sparking an interest in justice and equality. He attended mission schools and later went to Healdtown, a prestigious Methodist college. It was here that he first encountered racism and segregation, experiences that began to shape his political consciousness. Growing up in a segregated society, Mandela started to question injustice from an early age. If you were him, how would you have felt seeing the world around you divided by race? What would have motivated you to fight against it? Leave your thoughts in the comment section and don't forget to like and subscribe. Mandela's academic journey continued at the University of Fort Hare, South Africa's first institution of higher learning for black students. However, his time there was cut short when he joined a student protest and was expelled. This act of defiance marked one of his first steps toward political activism. In 1941, Mandela moved to Johannesburg to escape an arranged marriage and seek new opportunities. Here, he worked as a night watchman at a mine before becoming a clerk at a law firm. It was in Johannesburg that Mandela's political journey truly began. He joined the African National Congress, ANC, in 1943, a pivotal moment in his life. The ANC, at the time, was a moderate organization seeking equal rights for South Africa's black population. Mandela quickly became involved in its youth league, which advocated for more militant tactics. Johannesburg also exposed Mandela to the harsh realities of apartheid, the institutionalized system of racial segregation and discrimination that governed South Africa. He saw black South Africans forced to carry passbooks, relegated to menial jobs, and stripped of their dignity. These injustices fueled his desire for change. By the 1950s, Mandela emerged as a key figure in the anti-apartheid movement. Alongside Oliver Tambo and Walter Sisulu, he co-founded South Africa's first black law firm, providing legal aid to those affected by apartheid laws. Mandela also became a leading voice in the ANC's defiance campaign of 1952, where he organized peaceful protests against discriminatory laws. However, as peaceful protests were met with violence and repression, Mandela's tactics began to evolve. In 1955, Mandela played a key role in the Congress of the People, which produced the Freedom Charter, an important document that called for a non-racial, democratic South Africa. The Freedom Charter outlined the vision for the future of South Africa, where all people, regardless of race, would have equal rights. This document would become a cornerstone of the ANC's resistance to apartheid. Mandela helped write the Freedom Charter, which called for equality for all South Africans. If you had a chance to write such a document today, what key freedoms and rights would you demand for everyone, no matter where they live? Leave your thoughts in the comments section. Mandela's growing prominence also meant that the government took greater notice of his actions. He was arrested numerous times throughout the 1950s, but each time, he emerged more determined. His leadership was becoming impossible to ignore. Yet, the path to true freedom was far from clear. As peaceful protests were met with increasing repression, Mandela's thinking evolved. He realized that peaceful means alone would not be enough to topple a system built on racial hatred and oppression. In 1961, he co-founded Umkhonto we Sizwe, Spear of the Nation, the armed wing of the ANC. The group carried out acts of sabotage against government infrastructure, targeting symbols of oppression while avoiding loss of life. Mandela knew the risks but believed armed resistance was necessary to achieve freedom. In 1962, Mandela was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison for leaving the country without a passport and inciting strikes. But his troubles were far from over. In 1964, during the Rivonia trial, he and several other ANC leaders were convicted of sabotage and sentenced to life imprisonment. Mandela's speech during the trial remains one of the most iconic moments in history. "I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." Mandela's imprisonment on Robben Island became a symbol of the anti-apartheid struggle. Life in prison was harsh. Mandela and other inmates were forced into hard labor, breaking rocks in a limestone quarry. They lived in tiny, cold cells and were allowed only a few visitors each year. Despite these conditions, Mandela's spirit remained unbroken. While in prison, Mandela continued to educate himself and others. He read voraciously and debated with fellow prisoners, transforming Robben Island into a university of resistance. Mandela's resilience inspired millions outside the prison walls. International campaigns for his release gained momentum, with global leaders and activists rallying behind the call to free Nelson Mandela. By the 1980s, apartheid was under increasing pressure. South Africa faced economic sanctions, international condemnation, and internal unrest. The apartheid government began secret negotiations with Mandela, recognizing that his leadership was key to any peaceful resolution. On February 11, 1990, after 27 years in prison, Nelson Mandela walked free. The world watched as he took his first steps into freedom, hand in hand with his wife, Winnie Mandela. His release marked a turning point in South Africa's history. But the road ahead was not easy. Mandela immediately began working toward dismantling apartheid. He led negotiations with President F.W. de Klerk's government, striving to ensure a peaceful transition to democracy. These talks were fraught with challenges, including outbreaks of violence and resistance from hardline factions. Yet Mandela remained steadfast, preaching reconciliation over revenge. In 1993, Mandela and de Klerk were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to end apartheid. The following year, South Africa held its first democratic elections. On April 27, 1994, millions of South Africans of all races cast their votes, and Nelson Mandela was elected the country's first black president. Mandela's presidency, from 1994 to 1999, was marked by efforts to unite a deeply divided nation. One of his most significant achievements was the establishment of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, chaired by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The commission allowed victims and perpetrators of apartheid-era crimes to come forward, fostering healing and understanding. Mandela also focused on improving education, housing, and healthcare for South Africa's poorest citizens. His government introduced policies aimed at addressing the economic inequalities created by apartheid. While progress was slow, Mandela's leadership set the foundation for a more equitable future. Perhaps Mandela's greatest legacy as president was his emphasis on forgiveness and reconciliation. Despite decades of personal suffering, he held no bitterness. Instead, he famously donned the jersey of South Africa's rugby team, the Springboks, during the 1995 Rugby World Cup, uniting a nation that had long been divided along racial lines. After stepping down in 1999, Mandela remained an active figure on the global stage. He advocated for peace, human rights, and the fight against HIV/AIDS, a disease that had devastated South Africa. He established the Nelson Mandela Foundation, which continues to promote his vision of equality and social justice. Mandela passed away on December 5, 2013, at the age of 95. His death was met with an outpouring of grief and celebration of his life from every corner of the world. Leaders, celebrities, and ordinary citizens alike paid tribute to a man whose legacy transcends borders. Nelson Mandela's life is a testament to the power of resilience, forgiveness, and unwavering dedication to justice. He transformed South Africa from a nation divided by hate to one striving for unity and equality. His story reminds us that true leadership is about service, sacrifice, and the courage to dream of a better world. Looking back at Mandela's early years of struggle, how do you think you would have handled the challenges he faced? Would you have had the courage to stand up and resist in the same way he did? Why or why not? Leave your thoughts in the comments section and don't forget to like and subscribe to the Bio Network.